Hello students, the topic for discussion is the constitutional framework for protecting the rights of LGBTQ persons in India. Introducing the topic, to realize a world of equality and dignity for all, we will have to change laws and policies. We will also have to change hearts and minds. Every sector and every person can play a role, speaking out to remind the world that it should not be illegal to live your life as you are and to live your life with whoever you love. Quote is given by Rick Panel. The LGBTQ is an umbrella term which means lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender and queer for questioning. LGBTQ community is loosely defined group of individuals whose sexual orientation, identity, behavior, experience or practices are different from the other people in the society. Earlier, LGBTQ community was referred to as the gay community, but activists argued that this term did not include all the community members. LGBTQ community is referred by various terms by different people in the society like LGB, LGBT, GLBT, LGBTQ+, rainbow, umbrella, queer, LGBTQIA. The LGBTQ community is continuously facing various problems such as intolerance, discrimination, harassment, non-acceptance, bullying, hatred, threat of violence, etc. in society due to the fact that their sexual orientation differs from those people whose sexual orientation is seen by the society as heterosexuality. Various countries including India have recognized LGBTQ rights after years of struggle for their basic human rights. Despite the fact LGBTQ rights are recognized in India through protest and court decision, but still there are gaps in the effectiveness of the rights of LGBTQ community. Legislation and policies are needed to provide LGBTQ community security, rights as well as sense of belonging. Culture barrier must be eliminated from the society with the aid of law, and everyone must accept that human rights are open to all human beings regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity. Not only in India, all over the world, rights of LGBTQ community is increasing and various countries have started enacting a law to give effect of LGBTQ rights and anti-discrimination law. In upcoming years at international level, major focus will be on eradicating discrimination against LGBTQ community to provide equal rights, privileges and protection to LGBTQ community and to educate people about homophobia and heterosexism. Definition: the LGBTQ is an inclusive term which is widely accepted for minority community all over the world, which describes individuals who are struggling with their sexual orientation and gender identities in the face of the world. The LGBTQ is a short form of lesbian, gay, bisexual and queer, and each letter in LGBTQ has its own meaning. L stands for lesbian, which is used to describe a female who is physically, emotionally and mentally attracted to another female. G stands for gay, and it is used to refer a man or a male who is physically, emotionally and mentally attracted to another male or a man. B stands for bisexual, and it is used to describe individual who is sexually attracted to both men as well as women. T stands for transgender, used to describe an individual whose gender identity, expression or behavior differs from their biological sex. Q stands for queer, which refers to someone who is neither heterosexual nor cisgender. According to Yogyakarta principle, sexual orientation denotes each person's capacity for profound emotional, affectional and sexual attraction to an intimate and sexual relation with the individual of same gender or different gender or both. In a nutshell, sexual orientation refers to person's emotional, physical attraction to the individual of same sex or different sex or both. Homosexual female or male have sexual orientation for people of same gender. Heterosexual female or male have sexual orientation for people of different sex or gender. Bisexual female or male have sexual orientation for people of same sex as well as people of different sex. Sexual orientation is divided into categories such as heterosexuality, homosexuality and bisexuality. Gender denotes two socially constructed characteristics of female, male and gender diverse individual. Gender identity refers to person's internal conception of himself as man or women or anything else entirely which may or may not conform with one biological sex. Historical background of LGBT. The history of LGBT history to the essential recorded instance of people having similar sex affection and sex of whole human advancement include the verifiable setting of lesbian, gay, having pleasure and transgender. LGBTQ society and social orders far and wide. What gets by after various time of misuse, achieving disrespect, disgust and riddle has simply in latter decades been looked for after Asia, the Hijra are a station of third sexual direction or transgender social event that live a cultured occupation. Hijra may be brought into the world male sex and some may have been brought into the world female. In India, homosexuality is a topic of conversation since antiquated occasion to present day times. Hindu writings had taken positions with respect to the gay characters and topics. The antiquated Indian content Kama Sutra composed by Vatsanya devotees a total part on sexual gay conduct. Authentic scholarly proof show that homosexuality has been pervasive over the Indian subcontinent from the beginning of the time. Some major issues faced by LGBTQ community in India in day-to-day life being called chakka. From very young age, perhaps due to their upbringing, they are made to differentiate between male and female gender. Everything that seems in between is just plain wrong, so are they taught. They are being called chakka so frequently that at one point it becomes their nickname at places like school. People go on to get length to invent new swear words like 0.6, sine 30, half, etc. Bullying. There are so many people who would pinpoint and act the way they walk, mimic their voice, try to pull their pants down, crop them, etc. The hard part is when adult-like teachers join them. There are countless incidents when transgender face violence. As obtained from my research, there were incidents when a gay was dating a gay and was sitting in the garden and someone got hold of him and started beating him up while shouting unnatural bastard. Kicked out of house. A trans woman that I found who was educated till class 10th and liked to dress up like a girl was beaten up by her father when he got to know about her gender. Her mother kicked her out saying that she was disgrace to her family. Denied to get jobs and education. Most of LGBTs are effeminate guys are denied from job and education opportunities. Family issues. Lack of communication and misunderstanding between parents and their LGBT children increases family conflict. These problems with communication and lack of understanding about sexual orientation and gender identity can lead to fighting and family disruption that can result in an LGBT adolescent being removed from or forced out of the home. Discrimination at workplace. Discrimination of LGBT person at workplace is a significant factor in the differences in socioeconomic status for LGBT person. Gay and transgender individuals suffer from socioeconomic inequalities in large part due to discrimination in the workplace. Discrimination directly causes on their job stability and it results in unemployment and poverty. Victims of crime. These LGBT minority people becomes victim of violence and crime. However, LGBT individual experiences of violence and discrimination differ depending on a number of factors including race, gender, income, immigration, status and language barriers. LGBT immigrants are more likely to face violence based on race and ethnicity and or sexual identity and or gender identity. In Muslim countries, homosexuality is heinous crime and for it fine, imprisonment and capital punishment has been imposed on LGBT minority people. Reasons for the various problems faced by LGBT community in India. There is no proper sex education in place. While the idea of sex is still a huge taboo in our society, sex education has a critical role to play in our process of growing up. We have, however, come a long way and there has been a considerable increase in the levels of awareness about the birds and bees amongst the teenager in the contemporary society. When it comes to queer individual growing up in Indian society, however, the situation is dismissal. Most of us have no idea how to go about getting dirty until we get down to do some practical research. Health issues end up getting ignored. Growing up heterosexual, the distinct danger associated with sex are restricted to accidental pregnancy and sexually transmitted diseases. But homosexuality leads to a whole host of different health problems that don't get talked about. There is a large plethora of STs at large, and because of lack of information available, we end up ignoring health issues that we might potentially be threatened by. There is no end to the ugly labeling and homophobic slurs. Other than the fact that members of LGBTQ community face physical assault far too frequently, there is also the incessant verbal assault that they gave to deal on daily basis. More often than not, the term gay and faggot are used loosely with the bluntly negative connotation, and it is just not cool. Being a gay is not expletive. Being a gay is still largely dismissed as a mental illness. Even in the age of information, the lack of awareness that exists is daunting, and not just among the older generation that refuses to come to terms of the reality of alternate sexuality, but even amongst the millennials. It is awfully disheartening to come across young, seemingly educated individuals doing out misinformed opinion. Coming out is an ordeal that they have to go through with every time they meet someone new. Coming out to loved ones with their sexuality is one of the most tumultuous, gut-wrenching experience that anyone could go through in their lives. But even they have made it through that ordeal unscathed, talking about their sexuality and discussing it with every single person they meet is not very inviting perspective. Other than frequent loose judgments passed, there are also the risk of being ostracized and assaulted for being just who they are. Sexual assault with LGBTQ is a reality. Victims of same-sex sexual assault are invisible to professionals used to handle male-on-female rape and are shunned by a community that will accuse victims of destroying their glorious vision with the idea of inconvenient victimhood. A lot of people still have trouble believing that it's even possible for a woman to rape someone. Clarifying the reality invites comparison to an evil, predatory lesbian. But ignoring it is doing nothing to battle the epidemic of gay people being assaulted. LGBTQ rights in India. In India, after years of struggle, LGBTQ people have gained more tolerance and acceptance in India, especially in large cities. Despite of this, majority of LGBTQ people in India remain secretive because they are afraid of discrimination from their families and relatives who may regard homosexuality as a shame or sin. On 6 September 2018, the Supreme Court in Navtej Singh Johar versus Union of India has passed a historical verdict by striking down section 377 of Indian Penal Code 1860, which criminalized the homosexuality. Constitutional provision. The preamble of the Constitution of India declared to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic and political, liberty of thought, expression, faith, belief and worship, equality of status and opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of individual and unity and integrity of the nation. Article 13 of the Indian Constitution deals with the validity of pre-existing laws and post-existing laws in the light of provisions of the Indian Constitution. Under this article, the power of interpretation lies to the judiciary. It is the duty of the court to repeal those laws which violates the fundamental rights of LGBTQ people. Article 14 of Indian Constitution guarantees equality before law and equal protection of law. Here the expression any person refers to every individual without any kind of discrimination. Article 15 of the Indian Constitution prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex, caste, religion, place of birth, etc. Article 16 of the Indian Constitution guarantees every citizen an equal opportunity in public employment, which is also interpreted to guarantee social equality to LGBTQ community in case of public employment. Article 15 and Article 16 of the Indian Constitution empowers the state have power to make laws for protection and enhancement of LGBTQ minorities, which are now included in the categories of socially and educationally backward classes. Article 19 of the Indian Constitution guarantees protection of certain rights such as freedom of speech and expression, etc., which also protects one's gender expression or behavior. Article 21 of the Indian Constitution guarantee every person protection of life or personal liberty, which also includes right to privacy and personal dignity. The word sex is not restricted to biological sex, that is male or female, but it also includes the individual who do not consider oneself to be restricted to male or female. Non-recognition of gender identity violates the right of identity of an individual who do not consider oneself as men or women. The most important right is right to choose one's own identity to life with dignity under the Indian Constitution. Directive principles of the state policy consist in Part 4 of the Indian Constitution, which entrusted the state with responsibility to promote welfare of the people through eliminating the inequalities in status, opportunities, facilities, etc. among people. So, it is also the duty of the state to protect and ensure the welfare of LGBTQ community. Judicial perspective. The judiciary has played an active role in protection of LGBTQ. There are various judgments which are as follows. NAS Foundation versus Government of India. The Supreme Court in this case stated that Section 377 of Indian Penal Code 1860 imposes unreasonable restriction on consensual homosexual sex between two adults, which is a crime and is also a direct violation of Article 14, 15, 19 and Article 21 of the Indian Constitution, which provides basic fundamental rights for the LGBTQ community. The court declares Section 377 unconstitutional but did not strike down this section as a whole. National Legal Service Authority versus Union of India. The Supreme Court in this case held that non-recognition of transgender community identity is violation of Article 14, 15, 16 and 21 of the Indian Constitution. Further, court also created the third gender status for transgender and also directed government to make policies for the transgender community under Article 15 and 16. In case of K.S. Puttaswamy versus Union of India, the Supreme Court in this case stated that even if only small percentage of population is affected, the right of privacy cannot be denied. The court held that right of privacy also includes right to sexual orientation and gender identity. Navtej Singh Johar versus Union of India. In this case, Supreme Court ruled that Section 377 of Indian Penal Code 1860 is unconstitutional as it violates fundamental rights protected under the Indian Constitution and strike down Section 377 of Indian Penal Code 1860. The decriminalization of Section 377 of Indian Penal Code 1860 is first step of recognizing the rights of LGBT community in India, but the LGBTQ rights have a way long to go. Same-sex marriage. The recent verdict of Supreme Court in Navtej Singh Johar case removed the restriction for same-sex couples to legally enter into consensual sexual relationship. But if this couple want to get married, the law is silent, which ultimately leads to discrimination to LGBTQ community. Presently in India, same-sex marriage is neither legal nor illegal because there is no punishment mentioned in any law in India. There is a legal aspect of marriage which confers some right and obligation on two persons like adoption, inheritance, life insurance and any such other right. Unfortunately, Indian law do not provide same right to LGBTQ couples as to heterosexual married couples. For LGBTQ community, marriage is still far-fetched dream because laws in India do not provide any provision for LGBTQ community to get married. LGBTQ community does not have the most basic rights of marriage even after striking down Section 377 of Indian Penal Code 1860. LGBTQ community has only option of civil union which does not include the same-sex marriage that itself is discriminatory in nature. The Madras High Court in Arun Kumar versus Inspector General of Registration on 22nd April 2019 have taken a positive step towards matrimonial rights of LGBTQ community. The court permits trans women and men to register their marriage under Hindu Marriage Act 1955, considering it legal. Further, the court stated that expression bride under Hindu Marriage Act 1955 not just refer to someone born as a woman, but it also refers to transsexual. The Transgender Person Protection of Rights Act 2019. Since after the judgment of National Legal Service Authority versus Union of India in 2014, many efforts were made to enact a law to protect the transgender community rights at central level. In 2014, Transgender Right Bill was introduced and passed in Rajya Sabha, but this bill was lapsed in Lok Sabha. In 2019, the Cabinet passed the Transgender Person Bill 2019 in month of July, and it came into force on 10th January 2020. This act may be called as the Transgender Person Protection of Rights Act 2019. The Transgender Person Protection of Rights Act 2019 guarantees protection of rights of transgender and their welfare. The act was enacted after so many efforts but still have several lacunas which serve no good to the transgender community. The definition in the act is outdated or profuse regarding the community, and discrimination is forbidden in a chapter that lacks enforcing power, remedial steps and punitive measures. The ban on separation of child from the parents on the basis of being transgender, allowing them to separate child from their parent only through the order of the court, is absolutely irrational, and there is not a single procedure in the act that directs medical professional how to treat transgender person. The statutory body, the National Council for Transgender, has no independence to carry out the functions of the act, which has a mere representation 5% from transgender community. The act only provides the formation of National Council. However, the State Council should also be established as well. The act only provides 2-year punishment for any kind of violence, including sexual abuse against transgender person. There is no provision in the act for those who discriminate, bully or harass them to be prosecuted. The act was enacted without consulting anyone from transgender community about the problem and requirement, and act was passed without having single transgender perspective. Global perspective. Many countries have made strides in LGBTQ rights over past decade, while other more restrictive. However, huge challenges remains on the global level as LGBTQ people faces discrimination everywhere. In 1990, when the World Health Organization recognized homosexuality as natural variation of human sexuality, attitude of states towards homosexuality have shifted, with accepting homosexuality as normal human behavior and guarantees rights and privileges to homosexuals. Furthermore, LGBTQ rights have major effect on foreign relations over the last decade, but controversy over the issue has remained unabated amongst all the nations. Several international organizations such as United Nations and Human Rights Watch have taken measures, but due to opposition from several member states, no official statement has been released. The United Security Council released a rare statement after the Pulse nightclub mass shooting in Orlando in 2016, in which 49 people were killed and 46 injured, condemning the attack of targeting persons as a result of their sexual orientation. For the first time in this statement, United Security Council discussed the sexual orientation, which is also supported by countries like Russia and Egypt, which have a long history anti-LGBTQ rights. In 2008, 66 countries showed their support by releasing a statement for LGBTQ protection before UN General Assembly, but many countries opposed this. In 2011, same statement was made by Human Rights Council, which included the problems faced by LGBTQ community. It was further revised again in 2015 when the United Nations Human Rights Council published a report on abuse against the community in relation to international law commitments. 12 agencies of United Nations such as ILO, UN Women, WHO, UNICEF, UNAIDS Secretariat, UNDP, UNODC, WFP, UNESCO, OHCHR, UNFPA and UNHCR issues a statement which show their intention to end violence, abuse or discrimination against the LGBTQ community. In 2016, to examine global violence and discrimination against LGBT community, an independent expert is established by United Nations Human Rights Council. In 2017, the annual state-sponsored homophobia report of international lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans and intersex associates states that 25 countries have decriminalized homosexuality, and this change in law is made either by amendment in statutory law or by way of court judgment. The countries such as Brazil, Canada, England, France, South Africa, Spain, etc. recognize same-sex marriage. The Netherlands was the first country to legalize same-sex marriage 20 years ago. In 2019, Taiwan was the first country in Asia to pass laws on marriage equality. In 2020, Costa Rica became the first Central America to legalize same-sex marriage. In 2020, municipal government of Tokyo has passed bill which prohibits the discrimination against LGBTQ community. In 2021, Japan court ruled that ban to same-sex marriage is unconstitutional. The executive director of International Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Trans and Intersex Associate Ender Du Plessis say, "We have seen a lot of exciting changes from decriminalized same-sex relation in some countries to public apologies and marriage equality in other. Progress has been slow but steady. The increasing awareness of LGBTQ rights in countries like Africa, Asia, Eastern Europe, Asian, etc. represent a steady shift in global LGBTQ right movement. To make LGBTQ rights worldwide reality, countries must uphold their domestic human rights obligation which call for remove on global level." Suggestions: Amendment in Transgender Person Protection of Rights Act 2019 in favor of LGBTQ community should be made, such as inclusion of term LGBTQ in the act, right to marriage, right to adoption, right to inheritance, etc. Secondly, state should protect the rights of LGBTQ community without any discrimination such as education, employment, health, privacy, etc. Thirdly, special law for the protection of rights of LGBTQ community should be enacted. Need for legalizing the same-sex marriage. State government should make effort to change society attitude towards LGBTQ community by educating the society and by organizing workshops and seminars about their right. Government should take preventive measures for protecting LGBTQ from any kind of discrimination. So, concluding this topic, India is a developing country which is known as the world's largest democratic country with majority of LGBTQ people. LGBTQ people are those who have sexual orientation differ from heterosexual people, due to which they are facing discrimination. LGBTQ people are prima facie human beings, so they are entitled to have equal human rights as well as fundamental rights in India. India requires progressive legislation that ensure that all people are treated equally and have equal opportunities to contribute to the nation's future in order to accelerate its growth and development. One of the most discriminatory piece of British era legislation in India, that is section 377 of the Indian Penal Code 1860, which criminalized homosexuality, has been finally repealed, which gives a ray of hope to LGBTQ people for their rights. However, same-sex marriage is still not legalized. Adoption, life insurance plan, inheritance and other rights and obligations are conferred on two individuals by marriage. In a country like India, where marriage is fundamental right for every person and so much importance is attached to the marriage, but still LGBTQ marriage is not legalized. What good will it do to decriminalize homosexuality in India, where LGBTQ people are still unable to marry the person they love? On 10th January 2020, the Transgender Person Act 2019 came into force to protect the rights of transgender people, but still it has several lacunas and do not serve any good to LGBTQ people. Thank you. Have a nice day.